Pain is never just pain, not if you truly understand what's happening beneath the surface. Because what you feel in your hardest moments is not a signal of defeat, it's a signal of development. It's your life telling you that something is being rebuilt in you. Something stronger, something deeper, something that cannot be created through comfort. Most people misunderstand pain. They think pain is a red light, a stop sign, a message saying, go back, you're not ready. But in reality, pain is more like a construction alarm. It doesn't mean stop the building. It means building is happening. And building is always loud, always uncomfortable, always messy before it becomes beautiful. Think about your own life. The moments that shaped you the most were never the easiest ones. It was the rejection that made you reflect. It was the failure that made you rethink. It was the heartbreak that forced you to grow emotionally. It was the loss that made you understand value. None of those moments felt good while they were happening, but they changed you in ways comfort never could. And yet when pain returns, you forget that truth. You start thinking something is wrong. You start questioning your path. You start asking why everything feels heavy. But what if that heaviness is not a burden? What if it is strength being added to your character? What if life is not breaking you, but building resistance inside you so you can handle what's coming next? Because here's something most people never realize. If your life has resistance, it means you are moving. Nothing that is standing still feels resistance. A rock that doesn't move feels no pressure from the wind. But the moment you start moving forward, everything begins to push back. That pushback is not punishment. That pushback is proof of direction. Viewer engagement, pause for a moment and honestly ask yourself, are you suffering because you are failing, or are you suffering because you are finally trying to grow beyond who you used to be? Sit with that thought, because the answer changes everything. Pain is also selective. It doesn't attack people who are irrelevant to growth. It shows up in the lives of those who are in transition. When you decide to change your habits, when you decide to level up your mindset, when you decide to leave behind what is familiar but toxic, pain enters the picture, not to destroy you, but to test your decision. And that test is simple. Will you go back to comfort, or will you push forward into growth? Most people go back because comfort feels safe. Even when comfort is killing their potential, slowly it still feels safer than uncertainty. But the ones who rise, the ones who become stronger, sharper, and more focused, they make a different choice. They stay in the discomfort long enough for it to transform them. There is a reason pressure creates diamonds. It's not just a phrase, it's a process. It's a process. Carbon under normal conditions stays soft, common, unremarkable, but under extreme pressure over time, it changes its structure completely. It becomes something rare, something valuable, something unbreakable in its own way. And that is exactly what is happening inside you right now. You are under pressure, yes, but that pressure is restructuring you. It is removing weak thinking. It is forcing discipline where laziness used to live. It is replacing doubt with awareness. It is building emotional endurance you didn't know you had. But here is the truth you must accept. This process does not feel powerful while it is happening. It feels like struggle. It feels like confusion. It feels like delay. That's why most people quit during transformation. They expect growth to feel like progress, but real growth often feels like breakdown first. You are not breaking down, you are breaking through layers of who you used to be. And every layer removed hurts, because you are letting go of old identity, old habits, old excuses, old limitations, but what replaces it is stronger than anything you've carried before. So when pain shows up again, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask instead, what is this building inside me? That question alone changes your mindset from victim to builder. because builders don't run from pressure. Builders understand that pressure is part of creation. No building stands without stress during construction. No strength is formed without resistance training. No mind becomes sharp without challenge. You are in training right now, and training is not meant to feel easy. It is meant to prepare you for something easier to handle in the future. So don't rush this moment. Don't reject it. Don't waste it by wishing it away. Use it, learn from it. Let it shape you into someone who no longer fears difficulty but understands its purpose. There is a moment in every person's journey where everything feels silent, not peaceful silence, but confusing silence. The kind where you're putting in effort but nothing seems to respond. You're trying harder but nothing is changing. You're showing up but life is not giving you any signal that you're moving forward. And in that moment, doubt becomes loud. Not the kind of doubt that whispers once, but the kind that repeats itself. It starts asking you questions you never asked before. What if this is a waste of time? What if you're not meant for this? What if everyone else is moving ahead and you're just stuck? And slowly, if you are not careful, those questions begin to feel like truth. But here is what most people don't understand about that stage of life. It is not a dead end. It is a threshold, a silent passage between who you were and who you are becoming. And the reason it feels so heavy is because you are no longer the old version of yourself, but the new version has not fully arrived yet. That space in between feels like emptiness, but it is actually transition. Think about a seed buried under soil. From the outside, nothing looks like it is happening. No movement, no progress, no visible change. If you didn't know better, you would think it failed. But inside that seed, something extraordinary is happening. Roots are pushing down. Shoots are preparing to rise. Transformation is taking place in complete darkness. And that is exactly where many people give up in their own lives. They are in the soil stage of their growth, but they expect visible results immediately. They don't realize that what looks like nothing is actually everything being built beneath the surface. Viewer engagement, ask yourself honestly right now, are you in a season where nothing seems to be working, or are you in a season where everything is being built without your awareness? Take a moment with that question, because your answer will decide whether you quit or continue. The hardest part of this stage is not the lack of results. It is the emotional pressure that comes with it. You start comparing your progress to others. You see people around you moving faster, achieving more, getting recognition, and you begin to feel like you are behind. But what you don't see is their hidden struggle. And more importantly, you don't see your own hidden growth. Because growth is not always visible in the early stages. Sometimes growth is internal, it is mental, it is emotional, it is spiritual, it is the quiet strengthening of your mindset so that when success arrives, you are strong enough to handle it. Most people fail not because they never start, but because they quit in the middle phase. That space where effort is high, but reward is delayed. That space where discipline is required more than motivation. That space where you don't feel like a success yet, but you also can't go back to who you used to be. And that is why it feels uncomfortable. You are suspended between two identities. But understand this clearly, nothing valuable in life arrives instantly. Everything meaningful requires a season of hidden work. The most successful people you admire today once stood exactly where you are. They faced the same silence, the same doubt, the same temptation to quit, the same temptation to quit. The only difference is they stayed. They stayed when nothing made sense. They stayed when progress was invisible. They stayed when their mind told them to give up. And because they stayed, the silence eventually turned into momentum. Because silence is never permanent, it always breaks. But it only breaks for those who refuse to leave the process early. Right now, you may feel like nothing is happening, but in reality, everything is happening at once. Your patience is being built. Your focus is being sharpened. Your emotional strength is being tested. Your consistency is being trained. These are not small things. They are the foundation of everything you want in life. Without them, success would collapse the moment it arrives. Without them, success would collapse the moment it arrives. So this stage you are in, this quiet, uncomfortable, uncertain phase, it is not punishment. It is preparation. It is the invisible training ground where winners are made while others walk away. And if you stay just a little longer, if you resist the urge to quit, if you keep showing up even when nothing feels rewarding, that silence you are hearing right now will eventually too run into results so loud that even your doubts will have no choice but to disappear. Pressure is one of those things people misunderstand until life forces them to face it. Most people think pressure is a sign that something is going wrong. They think when life becomes heavy, when expectations rise, when challenges increase, it means they are not capable enough. But the truth is completely different. Pressure is not a warning that you are breaking. It is evidence that you are being shaped, because nothing in this world transforms without pressure. Not steel, not diamonds, not even human character. Everything that becomes strong first goes through a stage where it is tested beyond comfort. And what you are feeling right now, that tightness in your chest, that weight on your mind, that constant sense of being pushed, it is not random. It is structure forming. Think about it. When do you actually discover who you are? Not in easy moments, not when everything is smooth. You discover your real identity when things start going wrong, when plans fail, when expectations collapse, when people leave, when doors close. That is when the truth of your strength is revealed. Pressure has a way of removing everything fake. It strips away excuses. It exposes weakness. It challenges comfort, and in doing so, it forces you to meet the real version of yourself, the version that doesn't rely on motivation, the version that either stands up or breaks down. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can see pressure as punishment, or you can see it as preparation. Viewer engagement. Pause for a second and reflect on your own life right now. What is currently pressuring you? What situation feels too heavy, too overwhelming, too unfair? Now ask yourself, what if that very pressure is not trying to destroy you, but trying to reveal you to yourself? Sit with that thought, because that shift, perspective can change everything. The truth is, pressure creates clarity. Without pressure, you don't know your limits. Without pressure, you don't know your potential. Without pressure, you remain comfortable in a version of yourself that never grows. It is only when life pushes against you that you discover how much force you can actually generate in return. That is why some of the strongest people you will ever meet are not the ones who had easy lives. They are the ones who had no choice but to become strong. Life didn't give them comfort, so they built discipline. Life didn't give them certainty, so they developed focus. Life didn't give them support, so they built self-reliance. Pressure forces adaptation, and adaptation is the foundation of survival and success. Think of a piece of coal buried deep under the earth. Under normal conditions, it remains ordinary. But when pressure increases over time, something extraordinary happens. It transforms into something rare and valuable. The same material, same origin, but a completely different outcome because of sustained pressure. Now, apply that to your life. The pressure you feel right now is not random, it is consistent. It keeps showing up because you are in a phase of transformation that requires endurance, not escape. And the longer you stay under that pressure without giving up, the more refined you become. But here is where most people make their mistake. They try to escape pressure instead of understanding it. They avoid responsibility. They quit early. They distract themselves. They choose temporary comfort over long-term strength. And in doing so, they remove themselves from the very process that could have made them powerful. Because pressure is not your enemy. Misunderstanding it is. You are not supposed to feel comfortable while growing. Growth and comfort do not coexist. One always replaces the other. So if you are feeling discomfort, it simply means growth is active in your life right now. Something is being stretched, something is being strengthened, something is being upgraded. And yes, it feels intense. It feels overwhelming. It feels like too much sometimes, but that intensity is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that you are in the middle of something meaningful. Viewer engagement. Ask yourself again, are you resisting the pressure in your life or are you allowing it to shape you? Because the difference between those two responses determines whether you stay stuck or rise to a completely new level of yourself. Pressure also reveals direction. Because when everything is easy, you can stay anywhere and feel fine. But when pressure increases, only certain paths can hold your weight. That is when life starts removing distractions. It starts filtering out what doesn't belong. It starts guiding you, even through discomfort, toward what actually matters. And if you stay with it instead of running from it, something powerful happens. You become stable under conditions that used to shake you. Situations that once broke your focus no longer disturb your peace. Challenges that once felt overwhelming start feeling manageable. Not because they got easier, but because you got stronger. That is the real effect of pressure. It doesn't change the world around you first, it changes you first. So don't pray for a lighter load. Pray for stronger shoulders because life is not asking you to carry less. It is preparing you to carry more. There is a moment in every person's life when emotion stops being a guide and starts becoming a trap. One day you feel motivated, strong, unstoppable, and the next day you feel tired, empty, and ready to quit. And if you live based on those feelings, your life will rise and fall like a wave with no direction. That is why discipline becomes the dividing line between people who dream and people who become, because motivation is temporary. It depends on mood, environment, inspiration, energy, but discipline is different. Discipline is a decision that stays even when everything else fades. Discipline is what carries you when your emotions refuse to cooperate. And this is where most people fail without even realizing it. They wait for the right feeling. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait until they feel ready. But readiness is not a feeling, it is a habit. It is built through action, not emotion. Think about it. Every important thing in your life requires consistency. Your health, your future, your skills, your growth, they don't respond to occasional effort. They don't respond to occasional effort. They respond to repeated effort, and repeated effort does not come from motivation. It comes from discipline. There will be days when you wake up and feel like you can conquer the world. And there will be days when you wake up and feel like even getting out of bed is a battle. But both of those days demand the same responsibility. Keep going. Viewer engagement. Pause for a moment and ask yourself honestly, how many times have you stopped something important just because you didn't feel like continuing? How many dreams have been delayed not because you couldn't do it, but because you didn't feel like doing it? Reflect on that, because awareness is where change begins. Discipline is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not feel exciting in the moment. In fact, most of the time, discipline feels boring, repetitive, unrewarding, but that is exactly why it works. Because while motivation burns out quickly, discipline builds something permanent. The people you admire, the ones who seem unshakable, the ones who are always improving, always growing, they are not always motivated. They are disciplined. They have trained themselves to act regardless of emotion. They have made a decision that their future is more important than their current feeling. And that is the shift you must make. You are not in control of every feeling that comes into your mind, but you are in control of what you do with it. You can feel tired and still show up. You can feel uncertain and still take action. You can feel discouraged and still move forward. That is discipline. And every time you act against the resistance of emotion, you strengthen your identity. You become someone who does not depend on perfect conditions. You become someone who can be trusted by your own future. Because here is a truth most people ignore. Your future self is built by the decisions you make when you don't feel like doing them. Not when you feel strong, not when everything is easy, but when it is hard, when it is inconvenient, when no one is watching. That is where real transformation happens. Viewer engagement. Right now, think about the thing you've been delaying, not because you can't do it, but because you haven't felt like starting it. Ask yourself, how long are you going to let a feeling control your future? How long are you going to postpone your own progress? Discipline breaks that cycle. It removes negotiation. It removes excuses. It removes the constant back and forth between I will and maybe later. Discipline says, it's time. Do it anyway. And the strange thing is, once you start acting with discipline, something changes inside you. You stop relying on external energy and start generating internal strength. You stop waiting for permission from your mood and start leading your actions with intention. At first, it feels difficult. You resist it. You argue with it. But if you stay consistent, it becomes part of you. And slowly, what once required effort becomes your identity. That is how people are built. Not through SUD and inspiration, but through repeated decisions. Not through perfect motivation, but through imperfect action taken consistently. And once you reach that level, life no longer controls you through emotions. You begin to control your emotions through action. You become stable in chaos, focused in distraction, consistent in uncertainty. That is the power of discipline. It creates freedom by removing emotional dependence. So don't wait for the perfect feeling. Don't wait for the perfect day. Don't wait for the perfect moment. There are moments in life when you forget who you are, not because you have truly lost yourself, but because what you are going through is so heavy that it temporarily blocks your vision. Pain has a way of doing that. It narrows your focus. It makes you think your current situation is your permanent identity, but it is not. You are not your struggle. You are not your failure. You are not your failure. You are not your lowest moment. You are someone who has survived everything life has already thrown at you, even when you didn't think you could. Think about that for a second. You are still here after everything. After the nights you didn't think you would get through. After the moments you thought would break you completely, after the times you doubted your own strength, you are still standing, and that alone should tell you something powerful. You are stronger than your circumstances. But when you are in the middle of difficulty, your mind forgets your history. It only focuses on your present pain. It convinces you that what you are feeling right now defines your entire story. And that is where doubt begins to grow. You start questioning your ability. You start comparing your journey to others. You start thinking they are ahead, they are better, they are more capable. But you are not seeing the full picture. You are only seeing your struggle from the inside while airing it to someone else's highlight from the outside. Viewer engagement. Pause right now and reflect honestly. How many times have you underestimated yourself simply because you were going through something difficult? How many times have you forgotten your past victories because your present challenge felt too big? Think about it carefully, because this is where confidence is either built or destroyed. The truth is, strength is not something you discover in success. Strength is something you remember in survival. Every challenge you've faced before has already proven that you are capable of more than you think. But pressure has a way of making you forget your own resilience. That is why perspective matters so much, because the way you see yourself in struggle determines how you respond to it. If you see yourself as weak, you shrink. If you see yourself as defeated, you stop. But if you see yourself as someone in training, someone being prepared, someone evolving, you continue. and continuation is everything. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they forget their strength in the middle of difficulty. They assume that because something is hard, it is impossible. But difficulty is not a stop sign. It is a signal that you are stretching beyond your comfort zone. Think about your past. There were things that once felt impossible to you that are now part of your experience. Things you were once afraid to try are now things you have already survived. That pattern is proof that you are always evolving, even when you don't realize it. Viewer engagement. Ask yourself right now, if you have overcome things in the past that once scared you, why do you believe you cannot overcome what you are facing today? Why do you underestimate the same strength that already carried you through so much? The problem is not your capability. The problem is your current perception. Pain shrinks your vision. It makes you focus only on what is wrong instead of what is still possible. But your job is to expand that vision again, to remember that your current situation is not your final destination. You are still in motion, even if it feels slow, even if it feels uncertain, even if it feels like nothing is changing. Movement is still movement. And movement means your story is not finished. There is a version of you on the other side of this struggle that you cannot yet see, a stronger version, a calmer version, a more focused version. But to meet that version, you have to pass through this one, not avoid it, not escape it, but pass through it. And that requires something most people struggle with: trusting themselves again, trusting that even if things don't make sense right now, they are still shaping something meaningful, trusting that every setback is still part of a larger setup. Trusting that your effort is not wasted just because results are delayed, because nothing is wasted when you refuse to quit. So when doubt tries to define you, remind yourself of your history. When fear tries to convince you that you are not enough, remember everything you have already survived. When your mind tells you to stop, remind it that you have already come too far to turn back now. You are not starting over. You are continuing forward. There is a turning point in every life where pain either destroys you or defines you. It never stays neutral. It always becomes something. It either becomes the reason you quit or the reason you rise with a purpose stronger than anything you've ever known. Most people make the mistake of trying to erase their pain. They want to forget it, avoid it, escape it. They think healing means pretending it never happened. But real strength doesn't come from erasing pain. Real strength comes from transforming it, because pain in its raw form is energy, and energy does not disappear. It only changes direction. So the question is never whether you will feel pain. The real question is what you will turn that pain into. If you leave pain without meaning, it becomes suffering. It stays inside you, heavy, unresolved, and draining. But when you attach purpose to it, something powerful happens. It becomes fuel. It becomes direction. It becomes the foundation of a new identity. Think about the hardest moments of your life, the moments that made you feel like everything was falling apart. At the time, they felt meaningless. But if you look carefully, those same moments shaped your discipline, your awareness, your emotional depth. They changed how you see people, how you handle situations, how you respond to challenges, Viewer engagement. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what if the pain you are running from right now is actually the source of the strength you keep praying for? What if the very thing you call your weakness is the raw material for your greatest transformation? Sit with that thought, because it changes everything. Purpose is what gives pain direction. Without purpose, pain is just noise in your mind. But with purpose, pain becomes a message. It becomes a teacher. It becomes a guide pointing you towards something greater than yourself. You have to understand something deeply. Nothing meaningful is ever built without emotional cost. Every strong person you admire has a story behind their strength. Not a story of comfort, but a story of struggle that was turned into something useful. That is the difference. Some people let their pain define their limits. Others let their pain define their mission. When you see someone who is focused, driven, and unshakable, you are not seeing someone who avoided pain. You are seeing someone who learned how to use it at some point. In their life, they made a decision. What hurt me will not hold me back. It will push me forward. And that decision changes everything. Because once pain becomes purpose, you stop wasting it. You stop repeating it in your mind as a burden and you start converting it into action. You begin to ask different questions. Not why is this happening to me, but what can this make me become? That shift in question is everything. Because the first question keeps you stuck in the past, but the second question pulls you into the future. Viewer engagement. Think right now about something that hurt you deeply. Something you have not fully made peace with. Now ask yourself honestly, have you been carrying it as a wound, or have you started turning it into wisdom? Be honest with yourself in this moment, because awareness is where change begins. Purpose does not remove pain, but it removes confusion. And when confusion is gone, suffering loses its grip. You may still remember what happened, but it no longer controls how you move forward. There is a hidden power in people who have suffered and refuse to break. They develop clarity, they develop depth. They develop a sense of direction that cannot be taught, only experienced. Because when you have been through something that tested your limits, you stop chasing shallow things. You stop chasing shallow things. You stop being distracted by temporary validation. You start focusing on what actually matters. That is how pain becomes powerful. It sharpens your priorities. But this transformation does not happen automatically. It requires intention. You have to decide that what hurt you will not be wasted. You have to choose to extract meaning from what tried to break you. You have to take responsibility for your story, even the painful parts. And that is where real growth begins, not in avoiding pain, but in assigning it a purpose. Because when you do that, why? Reclaim control. You stop being a victim of your past and start becoming the author of what it means. You take something that once felt like a setback and turn it into a setup for something greater. So don't ask for a life without pain. Ask for the wisdom to turn pain into purpose. Because a life without pain may feel easier, but a life without purpose will always feel empty. There comes a point in every journey where life stops giving you clear directions. You don't always get signs. You don't always get motivation. You don't always get support. Sometimes all you are left with is one simple instruction from life itself. Keep moving. Not perfectly, not confidently, not with full clarity, but moving nonetheless. And this is where most people misunderstand progress. They think progress has to feel powerful. They think it has to feel exciting, visible, and rewarding. But real progress is often quiet. It is often slow. It is often invisible to everyone except you. There will be days when your effort feels like it is not producing anything. Days when you feel like you are repeating the same cycle, days when you question whether anything is actually changing. But what you don't see in those moments is that consistency is building something beneath the surface that results cannot yet reveal. Think about walking through fog. When visibility is low, you don't stop walking. You slow down, you focus, and you trust your direction. You don't need to see the entire road to keep going. You only need to see the next step, and that next step is enough to move you forward. Viewer engagement. Pause for a moment and reflect. How many times have you stopped something important in your life just because the results were not immediate? How many times have you misunderstood slow progress as no progress? Sit with that, honestly, because this realization alone can change your entire app. Roach to life. The truth is, most breakthroughs are not sudden events. They are accumulations. Small actions repeated consistently over time until one day the result becomes undeniable. But that one day only belongs to those who refuse to stop during the unseen days. You don't notice growth while it is happening. You only recognize it when you compare where you are now to where you used to be. That is when you realize that all the small efforts you thought were insignificant were actually building something massive. And yet, in the middle of the process, doubt tries to convince you that nothing is working. It tries to make you believe that effort without immediate reward is wasted effort. But that is one of the biggest illusions in life, because effort is never wasted when it is consistent, even when results are not visible. Your mindset is being shaped, your patience is being strengthened, your discipline is being tested and refined. You are becoming someone who can handle pressure without collapsing, someone who can stay committed without constant validation. That version of you does not appear overnight. It is built in the days when nothing feels exciting, but you still show up anyway. There is a powerful difference between those who stop and those who continue. Those who stop are reacting to how they feel. Those who continue are committed to where they are going, and life always rewards direction more than emotion. Your engagement, ask yourself right now, are you making decisions based on how you feel in the moment or based on where you want your life to be in the future? Because your answer to that question will reveal whether you are building momentum or losing it. Moving forward does not always mean making big changes. Sometimes it simply means refusing to stop. It means continuing even when clarity is missing. It means trusting the process even when the process feels slow. It means understanding that delay is not denial. Every step you take in uncertainty is still a step away from who you used to be, and that matters more than you realize. Because transformation is not a single moment, it is a direction, and if your direction is forward, even slowly, even imperfectly, even quietly, then you are still winning in ways you cannot yet measure. The problem is, people give up right before momentum arrives. They quit when things are just about to shift. They stop when consistency is about to turn into results. They misinterpret the silence before success as failure, when in reality it is just preparation. So keep moving. Even when it feels small, even when it feels repetitive, even when it feels like no one notices, because the version of you that you are becoming is not built in bursts of motivation. It is built in quiet persistence. And one day, without warning, you will look back and realize that everything changed not because of one big moment, but because you refused to stop during all the small ones. Keep going, because forward is still forward, no matter how slow it feels.